Let's talk about the WNBA Finals.
The WNBA Finals were supposed to be the absolute pinnacle, a glorious celebration of women's basketball at its highest and most compelling level. It was meant to be a showcase of pure star power, a crucible of intense drama, and a testament to raw, unbridled passion, all on full and glorious display for the world. But when superstars Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi walked onto the court and were greeted not by a deafening roar, but by the stark, undeniable sight of entire sections of empty seats, a different reality hit. A cold, brutal reality that landed with more force than any on-court rivalry ever could. Because what should have been the league's single grandest moment, its ultimate validation on the national stage, had instead devolved into a deeply and profoundly awkward spectacle of failure.
I believe y'all don't care. I think y'all care about the drama around it. I do believe that, but I don't think you care about the events itself. And judging by ticket prices, neither does anybody else.
The fans were not showing up, the ticket prices were in a freefall, and the electric, game-changing energy that had once surrounded Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever had completely and utterly vanished. For two of the league's biggest and most decorated stars, this was not just embarrassing, it was a profound and public humiliation. The television cameras captured their visible frustration, and the hot mics picked up their biting, almost desperate remarks about the shocking lack of fan support. And yet, lurking just beneath the surface of all that anger was a much deeper, more chilling realization. Without Caitlin Clark in the building, the WNBA's hard-won mainstream spotlight had not just dimmed, it had been practically extinguished, and almost no one seemed eager to watch anymore.
If ever there was proof that the Caitlin Clark fans / Fever fans are now the overwhelming majority of the fandom, look at ticket prices for finals games.
The build-up to the WNBA Finals was supposed to be a spectacle, a clash of two powerhouse teams with elite MVP-level talent on both sides, ready to battle for the ultimate crown. But as the day of the championship approached, a strange and deafening quiet began to settle over the league. There were no viral highlights flooding social media, there were no packed sports bars buzzing with anticipation, and there were certainly no instantly sold-out arenas. Instead, fans who were casually scrolling through ticket sites were met with a stunning and almost insulting reality. Seats for the championship game, what is supposed to be the single biggest stage in all of women's basketball, were selling for as low as $35. This wasn't just a lack of hype, it felt like a ghost town in the making, a championship nobody was coming to see.
Game one, the get-in price for game one matchup between the Aces and the Mercury for a WNBA Finals game. Holy hell, there's $35 seats right there. Right there. Plenty of good seats available.
Even Aja Wilson, the undisputed face of the Las Vegas Aces and the league's reigning MVP, could not hide her profound and palpable disappointment. She had expected the WNBA Finals to be loud, to be wild, and to be absolutely crackling with an electric championship-level energy. But when she walked out onto the court for her pre-game warm-ups and was instead greeted by the stark, undeniable sight of entire sections of empty red seats, she was reportedly heard to mutter under her breath, in a tone of pure astonishment, "This is the finals?" It was not a statement of arrogance, it was a pure, unfiltered expression of utter disbelief.
Look at that. Wow. $35 whole dollars. This might be the best part of the video for the WNBA, because when you gauge the interest, to gauge the interest of this series, and it was ugly.
For years, legendary players like Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi had fought tirelessly to elevate the league's overall visibility, and yet here they were in the championship, the supposed pinnacle of their sport, performing in front of a smattering of scattered fans and a host of television cameras that simply could not avoid showing the massive gaping holes in the stands. And Diana Taurasi was not quiet about it either. After the very first game of the series, she looked visibly and profoundly frustrated during her post post-game interviews. Her team had played hard, but the overwhelming silence from the crowd had been absolutely deafening. "You work your whole career for moments like this," she said, her tone as sharp as a knife, "and you just hope that people care enough to show up." And that one single, devastating quote perfectly and completely summed up the entire crushing emotional weight of the moment.
With DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, and the Mercury in the finals against A'ja Wilson and the Aces, will you be locked in watching this series? ? Yes or no? Hit the poll. 4% of brave souls said yes. 96% said hail to the no.
And behind the forced smiles and the scripted platitudes of the WNBA Finals, the players themselves were having a stark, real-time realization. The immense hype that had been surrounding their league might have been far more fragile than they had ever thought. Across all of social media, the fans quickly and mercilessly noticed the profound lack of energy. Photos of the vast empty sections of seats went viral, instantly sparking a series of heated debates about what exactly had gone wrong. Some people blamed the high ticket prices. Others pointed their fingers directly at the league's anemic and ineffective marketing strategy. And then, a great many others pointed toward the one, single, game-changing name that was missing from the WNBA Finals entirely: Caitlin Clark. The transcendent rookie had single-handedly reignited a national interest in women's basketball all season long. Her games with the Indiana Fever had been routinely drawing record-breaking, sold-out attendance numbers and generating massive, unprecedented television ratings. But without her on the court, without her magnetic presence, the WNBA Finals seemed to have completely and utterly lost their spark.
Guys, if the Fever and Caitlin Clark was playing in a finals game, let's say against the Mercury, with all that drama around there, would there be a single ticket less than $300? Now, I mean, honestly, a single ticket less than $300. I don't think so. I think you'd have courtside seats go for $5,000. If Caitlin Clark was playing, if she was in these finals along with the Fever.
Meanwhile, the league's officials desperately tried to spin the entire embarrassing narrative, lamely calling it a competitive matchup between two historic franchises. But the fans were not buying it for a second. They wanted emotion, they wanted compelling storylines, and they wanted a legitimate reason to actually care about the outcome. All things the league simply could not deliver this time around. The WNBA Finals were supposed to represent the absolute pinnacle of their sports competition, but instead, they exposed a single painful and undeniable truth. The WNBA's recent surge in popularity still completely and utterly revolved around a mere handful of polarizing, headline-grabbing figures. And without those figures on the court, all of that hard-won season-long momentum had completely vanished. By the time Game 1 of the series had concluded, the internet had already unofficially and cruelly labeled it the quietest finals in WNBA history. The lifeless, almost library-like atmosphere inside the arena was a stark reflection of a much deeper, more systemic issue. This was not a lack of on-court talent, it was a profound lack of connection with the audience. The stars were shining, but almost no one was there to watch them, and that bitter, humiliating reality was about to push both A'ja Wilson and Diana Taurasi to their absolute breaking point.
You are not invested, you are not interested in watching this BS transpire on your television sets.
The WNBA Finals, meant to be a pinnacle, became a stark spectacle of empty seats for A'ja Wilson and Diana Taurasi. What should have been the league's grandest moment felt humiliating, with plummeting ticket prices and the vibrant energy of Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever conspicuously absent. For the two stars, it was more than embarrassing. It was infuriating. Cameras caught their palpable frustration, microphones picking up biting remarks about the stunning lack of fan support. Beneath the anger lay a chilling realization: without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's hard-won spotlight had dimmed, and few seemed eager to watch. The build-up to the finals should have been electric, a clash of MVP-level talent. Instead, there were no viral highlights, no buzzing sports bars, and certainly no sold-out arenas. Fans scrolling ticket sites were stunned to find championship game seats for as low as $35, a ghost town in the making. A'ja Wilson, the reigning MVP, couldn't hide her profound disappointment. Seeing empty red seats during warm-ups, she reportedly muttered, "This is the finals?" It wasn't arrogance, but pure disbelief. For years, players like Wilson and Taurasi fought for visibility, yet here they were, performing for scattered fans and cameras that couldn't avoid showing massive gaps. Diana Taurasi didn't stay quiet. After Game 1, visibly frustrated, she said during post-game interviews, "You work your whole career for moments like this, and you just hope people care enough to show up." That devastating quote captured the crushing emotional weight of the moment. Behind the scenes, players realized the league's hype was fragile. Photos of empty sections went viral, sparking debates. Some blamed high ticket prices, others weak marketing. Many, however, pointed directly to Caitlin Clark's absence. The transcendent rookie had single-handedly reignited national interest, her fever games routinely drawing record attendance and massive TV ratings. Without her, the finals seemed to have utterly lost their spark. League officials desperately tried to spin the narrative, calling it a competitive matchup, but fans weren't buying it. They wanted emotion, compelling storylines, and a reason to care. The WNBA Finals, meant to be the pinnacle, exposed a painful truth. The league's recent popularity surge entirely revolved around a handful of polarizing figures. Without them, hard-won momentum vanished. By Game 1's end, the internet cruelly labeled it the quietest finals in WNBA history. The lifeless, almost library-like atmosphere reflected a deeper systemic issue, not a lack of talent, but a profound lack of audience connection. Stars shone, but few watched. This bitter reality would soon push Wilson and Taurasi to their breaking point. After Game 1, what should have been pride became boiling frustration for Wilson and Taurasi. Both veterans had poured their hearts into reaching the finals, only to be met with awkward silence and half-empty arenas instead of cheers. The WNBA promised growth and respect, yet it felt like overnight regression. For them, it wasn't just attendance, it was feeling abandoned by fans they were told were finally embracing the league. In the post-game press conference, Wilson's frustration surfaced. Her words were measured, but her tone carried immense weight. "We're playing some of the best basketball out there," she said, "but it's like nobody's watching." This spoke volumes. National coverage was thin, social media engagement nosedived. Game clips barely rippled compared to Clark's viral season. The contrast was undeniable. Taurasi, however, didn't hold back. Blunt and emotional, she declared, "It's disrespectful. We deserve packed arenas. We deserve to feel that energy." Her comments instantly spread, sparking debate. Some argued veterans contributed to the fan divide. Others sympathized, agreeing the league's marketing ignored what fans truly wanted. The narrative shifted from disappointment to a damning reflection of the WNBA's growing pains. Fans weren't just absent, they were disinterested, having checked out after Clark's fever were eliminated. Without her, casual viewers stopped tuning in, and the finals lost all urgency. Unfair to Wilson or Taurasi, but it was reality. The league's identity crisis was broadcast live. Locker room tension mounted. Players whispered about the league mishandling the momentum opportunity. Many believed the WNBA leaned too hard on rivalry and resentment instead of celebrating unity. Others felt Commissioner Kathy Engelbert did little to bridge the widening gap between veterans and Clark's new wave of fans. This resentment boiled over publicly, Wilson and Taurasi becoming its face. Clips of their interviews circulated, mocking empty arenas and accusing the league of failing its stars. Sources claimed both privately vented anger toward WNBA officials for downplaying the embarrassing optics. Disappointment was turning into open defiance, and the world was about to witness just how raw their emotions could get. Game 2 was meant to reset the tone. The league doubled down on promotion, offered discounted tickets, and flooded social media with hype. But at tip-off, the sight was identical: vast empty seats, quiet stands, fans scrolling phones. For Wilson and Taurasi, it was the last straw. What followed wasn't a traditional meltdown, but a raw public eruption of years of pent-up frustration during a second-quarter timeout. Cameras caught A'ja slamming her towel, visibly angry, exchanging sharp words, glaring towards the stands. Moments later, Taurasi shook her head after missing a layup, shouting something towards the crowd. Lip readers online decoded her message, nobody caring. Within hours, clips went viral. Fans took sides. Supporters defended Wilson and DeWanna, tired of carrying the league without support. Others mocked the tantrum of the century. Comment sections exploded. Maybe if they stopped hating Caitlin Clark, they'd have fans in the seats. It was harsh, but captured a growing sentiment. Veterans who mocked Clark were now facing consequences for alienating the audience she brought. By the post-game press conference, tension filled the air. Reporters treaded carefully, but one question lit the fuse. Asked about her frustration, Taurasi exhaled sharply. "It's embarrassing. We put everything into this, and people act like it doesn't matter." Wilson nodded, tense. "We shouldn't have to beg for respect," her voice cracking from exhaustion. The clip was replayed endlessly. ESPN debated a league crisis. Commentators noted the irony. Players once frustrated by Clark's media attention were now pleading for that very spotlight. The irony was lost on no one. Players once seen as the WNBA's face were now symbols of its struggle. Behind closed doors, staff urged calm, but it was too late. The tantrum became the story. For the first time, the finals weren't about basketball. They were about pride, resentment, and the uncomfortable truth that the league's biggest stars couldn't fill arenas without the one player they tried to overshadow. That stark realization would fuel a full-blown war of words. By the morning after Game 2, the story spiraled out of control. Frustration transformed into a public showdown between fans and stars. Social media erupted with comments, memes, and video edits mocking Wilson and Taurasi. Clips of them fuming were stitched with captions like, "You wanted Caitlin gone, now look around," and "Empty seats don't clap back." The tone was brutal. The backlash stung because it came from loyal followers who felt alienated by veterans' dismissive attitudes toward Caitlin Clark. The finals, instead of uniting, deepened a cultural divide. Veterans believing the league earned its growth, new fans crediting Clark. Wilson's frustration fueled the storm. In a now-deleted tweet, she jabbed at bandwagon fans who only show up for one player, meant to defend the league's legacy. It was interpreted as bitterness and hypocrisy. Screenshots spread like wildfire. Taurasi's silence became its own statement. Reporters at practice noted both stars looked drained by online criticism. Numbers told a damning story. TV ratings for the finals dropped almost 50% compared to Clark's semifinals. Commentators could no longer ignore it. "You can feel the difference. This isn't about the game. It's about who the fans want to see representing the league." That sentence became the quote of the week. Even neutral players spoke out, some calling for unity, others subtly acknowledging the finals lacked Clark's spark. This honesty made Cathy Engelbert's job harder. She tried to control the narrative by praising resilience and leadership, but her comments sounded hollow against images of empty bleachers. For Wilson and Taurasi, their outburst exposed a painful reality. League stars and fans were no longer on the same page. The finals, dreamed of as a breakthrough, became a mirror reflecting every flaw, grudge, and missed opportunity to engage fans. By Game 3, silence between players and supporters turned into loud resentment. By Game 3, the controversy was too big to ignore. Fans were angry, players frustrated, media circling. When Commissioner Cathy Engelbert appeared at the pre-game press conference, tension was palpable. She tried to open with optimism, praising athletes and historic growth, but her words rang hollow against half-empty arenas and plummeting ratings. Reporters' questions were fast and sharp. "Commissioner, how do you explain the record-low attendance and clear fan disinterest?" Engelbert froze, forced a tight smile, and gave a rehearsed answer, blaming scheduling conflicts, marketing fatigue, and misleading narratives online. Reporters weren't buying it. The follow-up hit harder. "Isn't this about how the league handled Caitlin Clark's rise and the fan backlash?" That moment shifted the room. Engelbert's face stiffened, her tone defensive, her corporate facade cracking. "This is not about one player," she stated, her clipped frustration making things worse. Clips of her answer immediately hit social media. Hashtags like #WithoutCaitlin and #EngelbertOut began trending. This was no longer just criticism. It was an open rebellion from a fan base that felt unheard. Wilson and Taurasi, quiet since their outbursts, were back in the storm. Engelbert's comments made them look complicit, as if they too refused to to acknowledge the obvious. Caitlin Clark had become the WNBA's heartbeat. The league's reluctance to embrace that reality was backfiring on everyone. Even neutral analysts admitted her tone-deaf answers widened the chasm between leadership and fans. Inside the arena, things weren't better. Cameras panned across empty seats, broadcasters awkwardly avoiding upper sections. Tension was palpable in the subdued crowd, strained player expressions, and the heavy feeling of every missed shot. The WNBA Finals became a referendum on leadership, fan loyalty, and the league's future. By the end of her disastrous press conference, Engelbert looked exhausted. She tried to pivot to positivity, but it was too late. Damage was done. Her defensiveness poured gasoline onto a fire she couldn't contain. Headlines screamed, "Engelbert melts down." Fans turn on WNBA leadership. Empty seats, empty words. One truth became impossible to deny: the league was in crisis, and its commissioner had made it infinitely worse. Behind closed doors, WNBA tension reached a boiling point. Players, coaches, and executives walked on eggshells, trying to hold the finals together as the league's reputation unraveled. What should have been a celebration became a crisis of confidence. Engelbert's shaky press conference deepened the cracks. In team hotels, whispers spread. Players were angry, not just at fans, but at leadership for putting them in this impossible position. Wilson reportedly vented after Game 3, "Tired of being made the scapegoat. We show up, we work, we play hard, and somehow it's always our fault." Diana Taurasi's silence spoke volumes. Both women were under intense fire for their frustration, yet couldn't deny the truth. The finals were an embarrassing display of disconnect between players and fans. The excitement, buzz, and competition felt hollow without Caitlin Clark's electric energy. Within league offices, executives scrambled to contain the fallout. PR teams drafted talking points to steer interviews away from empty arenas. Social media managers tried to flood feeds with empowering highlights to change the narrative, but attempts felt forced. Fans weren't fooled, still sharing side-by-side comparisons of packed fever games versus barren finals. Comments were brutal. "You chased away your own audience. Now you're just playing for yourselves." Some players from other teams privately spoke about resentment. Younger athletes, seeing how Clark's popularity lifted paychecks, were frustrated. Veterans treated her like an outsider. "A lot of us are just tired of the drama." One anonymous player admitted, "We just want the league to grow." This reflected the WNBA's fear. The divide was between old guard and new era. Engelbert held an emergency meeting with team representatives, urging them to focus on the game and ignore social media noise. But it was too late. Damage had spread. Sports media dissected the implosion as a cautionary tale of pride, politics, and poor marketing. Locker room morale was at an all-time low. Players were physically and emotionally drained. Every headline felt personal, every tweet a jab. The WNBA Finals had turned into a battle for survival. As pressure mounted, Wilson and Taurasi were left with a painful question. If fans had walked away, who were they playing for? As the series neared its final stretch, the WNBA's worst nightmare became reality. Numbers poured in: historic low attendance, TV viewership plummeted by nearly 50% compared to Clark's semifinals. Social media engagement dropped off a cliff. What should have been the season's proudest moment became a sobering reflection of the league's fragile success. The Caitlin Clark effect was a measurable, undeniable truth, staring Engelbert and the players in the face. Sports networks quietly reported Game 2 barely drew a fraction of Fever's audience. Analysts were blunt: "The fans have spoken. They're watching for stories, not for slogans." And right now, the WNBA is not telling one that is worth following. That comment became the dagger defining the moment. Teams were aware of the numbers. Headlines screamed, "Lowest finals ratings in a decade." Empty seats and empty promises. Even league defenders questioned its direction. This wasn't about lack of talent, but lack of connection. Fans no longer felt emotionally tied to the stars. The organization's refusal to acknowledge that divide only worsened things. For Wilson, it was a wake-up call. Reportedly emotional after seeing viewership data, she'd worked her career for legitimacy, yet her biggest season was remembered for apathy, not achievement. "It hurts," she confided. "We did everything right on the court, but it still feels like nobody cares." Taurasi felt the same. Despite her story storied career, she couldn't shake the thought the league had lost its identity. "You can't ignore the fans," she told staff. "They decide who matters." Meanwhile, Kathy Engelbert held another press briefing, trying to shift focus to positive growth metrics, but media wasn't buying it. Questions about empty seats, player frustration, and fan backlash dominated interviews. She looked increasingly defensive, insisting the league was moving in the right direction. The problem numbers on screen said the opposite. Every statistic, poll, and chart told the same damning story. The league without Caitlin Clark was not just struggling, it was invisible. The WNBA Finals would be remembered not for who won, but for what they revealed. Leadership could no longer deny its biggest star wasn't on the court. She was dominating conversations from home. As the trophy was lifted before empty seats, an undeniable truth echoed. The league's future depended on whether it could finally embrace the player who made people care again. As the final confetti fell, the celebration felt hollow. Cameras focused on smiles, but wide shots told a different story. More empty chairs than fans, awkward silence over excitement. What should have been a defining moment became a turning point. Numbers, optics, fan reactions, everything pointed to the WNBA mishandling its biggest opportunity, and the fallout had begun. Sports journalists called it out. This finals exposed the league. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's pulse flatlined. Talk shows and YouTube commentary shifted from basketball to accountability. Fans questioned if Kathy Engelbert was fit to lead. Her dismissive responses, unwillingness to address the divide, and defensive tone turned a leadership problem into a full-blown crisis. Behind the scenes, executives tried to calm the storm. Meetings with team owners discussed damage control. Ideas for marketing restructuring and fan base rebuilding were floated, but the issue was deeper than promotion. It was about trust. Fans felt disrespected, alienated, ignored. Many entered the WNBA ecosystem because of Caitlin Clark, only to be met with hostility from players they were told to support. The finals exposed that ugly truth, unfixable by press releases. Meanwhile, Wilson and Tarasi found themselves at a crossroads. Their public frustration, once passion, was now arrogance to many fans. Tantrums, press conference tension, and dismissive attitudes damaged their public image. Wilson, realizing this, attempted to soften her tone, acknowledging the league needed to grow together. Tarasi remained defiant, insisting real fans stay loyal, but loyalty was a luxury the WNBA could no longer demand. As the dust settled, the league faced its harshest reality. Growth wasn't guaranteed. The Caitlin Clark phenomenon proved interest in women's basketball could skyrocket, but only if the league nurtured it instead of fighting it. The finals became a symbol of what happens when ego overrides evolution. Fans hadn't abandoned the game, they abandoned the attitude. By week's end, Kathy must go flooded social media. Petitions circulated, demanding new leadership that would listen to fans and embrace the sport's new identity. Sponsors watched closely, networks reconsidered deals. The message was clear: the league couldn't survive on pride alone. As lights dimmed in that empty arena, a haunting question lingered. Had the WNBA just witnessed its wake-up call, or its warning shot? The answer would determine its future. When the WNBA Finals finally ended, the scoreboard didn't matter, the silence did. What should have been a crowning moment turned into a mirror, reflecting everything the league refused to confront. Aja Wilson's anger, Diana Taurasi's frustration, and Kathy Engelbert's defensiveness weren't isolated moments. They were symptoms of a system disconnected from its audience. Fans had spoken, with their wallets, their tweets, and most powerfully, their absence. They didn't hate women's basketball, they hated feeling dismissed. The league, dreaming of unity, had fractured into a bitter landscape of pride, politics, and lost opportunity. The truth is simple: the WNBA doesn't have a marketing problem, it has a humility problem. Until it learns to embrace the player who made millions care again, every finals will look just like this one: a championship played in an echo chamber, waiting for an audience that has already moved on.